So for today's video, we are going to talk about wig prep. I'm going to show you how to do pin curls and then talk about wig prep for shorter hair. So you can see on this half of my head, I already did my pin curls. Pin curls are a way to curl your hair without heat, but they're also a great way to flatten down hair so that you're able to put a wig over it, and it also creates like little areas that you can use as anchors for your pins for wigs. So even though I have like very long hair, and somebody would probably look at me and think that it would be better to French braid my hair, I can pin curl my hair pretty quickly. This really only took me a couple of minutes, and they are pretty flat. I have one that's kind of like exploding, but I can pin that back. So just because somebody's hair is really long doesn't necessarily mean that they may not be somebody that can do pin curls. I've pin curled really long hair really quickly. I think it depends kind of like on the thickness of somebody's hair. My hair is really thin, so it's not that hard for me to do it. If my hair was thicker, it might be easier to braid it, but this is a pretty good option for anybody who does have longer hair. I've done it to people with curly hair before too. Just know that if your hair is wet, it's going to get really, really curly once you undo it, and really, if your hair does respond well to curl, the longer you have it up like this, the curlier and wavier it is going to be. So if you want your hair to not look crazy when you take it out, try to kind of like pay attention to the direction that you are doing your pin curls in. So in order to do this, you just need bobby pins, and you can kind of see on the ones I have done already. You make little X's once you roll the hair, and that's how it's going to stay on your head, basically. So the first thing that you want to do is grab a section of hair. So like we talked about in the other video, it's a good idea to have pin curls in the center of your head. So I kind of end up doing mine, I feel like, more in like the pretty way. So I kind of leave my part a lot. But the more you can have in the center of your head, the better it's going to be for somebody to pin in. And then you want to make sure you have some by your ears, and then definitely on the nape of your neck, and then just anywhere else that you need to get your hair flat. So I usually start it by putting like 2 of my fingers at the base of a fairly small section of hair. The smaller you make the section, the smaller your pin curls are going to be too. So just kind of like keep that in mind. And then I think people do this differently. I've seen some people who just like twist the hair down, but I tend to like twist it around my fingers, and then I just kind of like roll it back off into like a little curl. Mine's probably going to be in like a million different directions, but you can kind of do it however you want. So let me try to make that one a little bit smaller to kind of show you a little bit better. So I put my finger right at the base, and then for me, I just wrap the hair around, and then you just kind of slide it back off your fingers, and that preserves your little curl shape. So that one's better because that one is more like in the center, and that's going to be a better anchor for me than what I had originally. So you want to make sure that they're not like too far forward, but they need to be far enough forward that you can pin down the front of somebody's wig. But if somebody's wearing a lace front, you want to make sure that the pin curls aren't going to be seen in the lace. So I think I pinned that kind of crazy because I can't really see what I'm doing, but as long as it's pinned down, the X's, I feel like that's like the prettier way to do it, but that's pinned down in some way, and you want to make sure your pins aren't like sticking up like crazy so they don't poke through your wig cap, but as long as it's anchored to your head, doesn't really matter, as long as, yeah, it's anchored down and the pins aren't sticking out like crazy, you're gonna be totally fine. So again, just gonna like wrap the hair around, and then you just like scoot it back off your finger, and then we can just pin it down. I prefer like the bobby pins. I feel like they're not as like thin of a plastic, and they have more of like a little like tip on the end of them. I think these work a lot better than some of the ones that are just like very, very plasticky. These ones are a little bit more expensive, but they aren't like crazy expensive, and I really do think that it makes a difference, and it just holds hair a lot better. I think that one, yeah, that one's a little bit more normal than the one that I think is like on the top of my head. But again, like I said, like I have really, really long hair, and this really doesn't take me that long to do. So if somebody has shorter hair, it's really something you can get done in just a couple of minutes. Generally, when I've worked on shows, the performers do their own wig prep, but sometimes you're gonna have shows where you might have to help them out, or if somebody does have really, really long hair, or I worked on a show once where somebody had to go in and out of a wig in their natural hair, which is really no one's ideal situation, but her and I had to pin curl her hair really, really quickly to get her fully changed back into a wig and then she'd go back into her natural hair. So that's one situation where you might have to pin curl their hair like really quickly. She had hair like maybe longer than mine and it was definitely thicker, but stuff like that can be done. So the more you practice it, definitely like the faster you're going to get at it. I really like pin curling because I do like the way that it like makes your hair look when you're done. So it's a good thing. Like I know a lot of people like who wear wigs, like they don't want their hair to be like ugly for like opening night. I feel like this is a good thing that you can do because as long as you're like putting them like in the direction that you want your hair to curl, they're gonna look nice and you can kind of like brush them out and you'll just have like waves when you're done. And again, I could be doing just like pin curls in the front and like French braiding my hair. For me personally, it's much easier for me to braid someone else's hair than it is for me to braid my own. So I always just found that it was easier to pin curl hair. If you're trying to pin curl hair for like a hairstyle, if you do really small ones, again, that's when you're going to get like a really, really small curl, but it's going to take you a really long time. So I don't recommend, unless you give yourself time probably before you like get to the theater, to do really tiny pin curls, that you don't do that, just because it's going to take you way too long to put them in and then to take them back out as well. And again, I like to secure each one with 2 pins. I just feel like it's a safer bet than just putting in one. And you do want to make sure that you're putting them in tightly, but again, nothing should be painful because somebody's going to have this on for quite some time. So if anything feels like too tight or they tell you that it does, you want to make sure that you kind of get in there and fix that before it is too late. And again, so you can see, like I said, like my hair is really, really long, like it is to my waist, but it's still pretty quick for me to go in and pin curl it. It's not bad. And again, there's some times where you might just do like pin curls in the front, like I was saying, and then if you have like the Surgifix wig prep, you can kind of just like scoop the rest of your hair up into it. A lot of people like to opt for that. I just have not worked at every single theater, you know, that has that. It's like I've worked at like 2 different places that use that, so you can't always assume that things like that might be available to you. So that's why I think it's good to kind of like be well versed in like a few different ways of doing wig prep, just because you never really know sometimes like what method you might get stuck having to do. So I just have to like fix a couple in the back. And this is when like probably if you can use a mirror to like look at the back of your head, that would help. But I did not do that. But I'm not going to be in this for terribly long. But you can see that really only took me a couple minutes, and that's like with talking, so really if I wasn't doing anything else, I would have had that done super quickly. And it's not bad. It's a little crazy in some spots. If it's ever a little crazy, I just go back and I'll add another pin to it. Because honestly, like, yeah, like your hair will look better if you do them cute, but ultimately, as long as you get your hair up, that's really all that matters, and that it's flat. So as long as there's no like crazy pins anywhere, you would be all set. So at this point, you would want to throw your wig cap over it. But before we do that, I just want to show you if we were going to do like short hair wig prep, what that would kind of look like. So you can either use like athletic wrap to do it. I'm not going to do that today, but you can kind of create like your own little headband out of this, and you can use that and then like put pins through that. Or you can use like little headbands. So I usually just use like these little pre-made. I always think of them as like athletic headbands. I use these, and you can either sew like toupee clips to them. So you can either put like these little toupee clips, or you can just attach it with pop clips if you want to. So if you're going to do that, so if we just pretend that my hair is not in pin curls and that it's actually just this short, somebody could like put this on. This is when you have to remember how to put headbands on. So we'll say, and probably like a little thicker than this would be better, but this is what I have accessible for right now. So usually with the ones that are good to use, they're a little bit thicker, but you have to imagine if I had short hair, they wouldn't, it wouldn't quite have this kind of volume. But just to kind of give you an idea of what you would do. So you wouldn't have all these crazy pins or anything. We would just pretend my hair is really short, but I have to wear a wig. And then, so that's when I would take like these clips, and I could just kind of like clip that down all around my head. These can get kind of bulky though, so sometimes I think smaller ones are better, or you could go in and you could bobby pin all of it, but personally I think using like the toupee clips inside of it works really well, but that's a really good thing to use, and I think a lot of times people don't teach people with short hair how to do wig prep, so I think sometimes they just like throw their wigs on with nothing, and then you can't really like pin into it, so it's good to have some sort of band. Otherwise, what I've done for people in the past, if they have like a really quick change in and out of a wig and they have shorter hair, I've had people that have preferred just using toupee clips in their actual hair, so I've let them do that. They didn't wear a wig cap, but it was a situation where they were only in this wig for like a few minutes, and it wasn't that big of a deal, so I just sewed toupee clips into like the front, the sides, and then in the back, so like the same places that you know you want to have pin curls, which again, that's going to be right in the front, one above each ear, and then one in the back. I don't know if you can even see what I just did, but those are the kind of places that you would want things like that. So as far as like what wig caps and stuff to use, you won't always get a choice over color. I think sometimes it just depends on where you work and what they have, but you want to try to get a wig cap that is going to match the color of the wig that you're wearing. So when I demo how to put on wigs, I have one that's darker and I have one that's blonde. The blonde one has bangs, so you wouldn't be able to see the wig cap no matter what, but if I was wearing like a lace front blonde wig, I would definitely want like a lighter blonde wig cap. And then usually like the darker the wig cap. If somebody has like a green wig, you can dye wig caps, so you kind of want to do your best to match it to the color of the wig, so that way in case any of it is seen, you're not really like distracting people with having like a white wig cap underneath a black wig or something. This just kind of helps it look a little bit more natural. As far as like finding wig caps that you like, this is one brand that I found. It's like Wig Alive. It's hard to see. That's one that I really like. We sell them at Krylon, but I'm sure lots of places sell them. I think this is a nice brand. A lot of the ones that I find out at like beauty supply stores are really, really tight. And I'll stretch them out over wig blocks for people overnight. And then sometimes too, like the first time I put them on, I always really stretch them, just because I feel like wig caps are like made for infants sometimes. As they are just so small. So if you can, stretch them out. Otherwise, just look for brands that you know are kind of like nice and like work well. I find a lot of the ones that are like easily accessible at like the beauty supply stores, or some of like the bigger retail stores, those are the ones that I feel like they tend to run a little bit small. So I try to find like that brand, like the Wig Alive brand. I really like those. Otherwise I don't think I have like a preferred brand, but that's the one that I've been using for the past couple of years, and I've been pretty happy with it. So if you are putting a wig cap on for somebody else, if they go like this, they can catch the front of it, and then you can help pull it on and secure it on. If you're putting it on yourself, it's not the easiest thing in the world, so you just kind of have to like try to open it up. I've never done this on myself before right now, so you have to kind of like try to catch it onto your forehead, which is not that easy. And then, oh my goodness, we'll see if I can do this. There we go. This is not going to be my most flattering moment, but again, it is really hard. I feel like if you're a crew person and you can help your performers get into their wig caps, or if you guys are working and you don't have like a wig and makeup person, or like wardrobe isn't allowed to help you, I would help each other put on your wig caps, because it is really, really hard to put it on yourself. As you can see, me struggling so hard to do this. And again, you're just working on like putting all of the hair into it. So you want to make sure that you get all of the hair in it. Oh my goodness, this is crazy. But I see a lot of people who like come to get their wigs put on after they put on like their own wig caps. And they have all this like crazy hair sticking out of it, and like if you show up and you try to put your wig on over that, your wig is just going to get caught onto your bobby pin. So you want to make sure that you are putting that on, and making sure that everything is covered. You also want to make sure that you don't leave like too much of the band showing, because if I have this much showing, like if I have like a hard front wig with bangs, like that's gonna be fine, but you really want to like kind of pull it back a little bit, because sometimes with wigs you need to see a little bit of somebody's hairline, so try to get as much of it covered as you can, but just know that like you don't want their whole forehead to be wig cap, it just as much as like you don't want to see all their baby hairs either. And you really want to make sure that like the back is all tucked in, and then a lot of times you have like this little bit. This you can just kind of like twist and pin down with like a little like hairpin, and kind of like scoop that. It's good if they have some kind of like a pin there or like something to pin into there, I mean, but if they don't, it'll usually like sit pretty flat. So as far as like the kind of pins to secure this down, you can use bobby pins, you can use hairpins. I think hairpins are a little bit more like seamless, but if you only have bobby pins, that is okay to do, but you just want to go through and just make sure that it is secure on somebody. So I've got a bunch of bobby pins. I'll probably just do that. And you want to make sure that you're like pinning through the cap into the wig prep, so you should hear like that pop. That means that like it went through into it. A lot of people I think try to get away with like not pinning their wig caps down. And by doing that, it's just gonna like creep up on your head when you're on stage. So you want to make sure that you take the time to at least secure it. Like I like to at least secure it on the sides and on the back. So if you can at least do that, I think it's smart to pop one in the center too. But if you can at least give it yourself the pins in the back, so like your nape, and then on the sides, it's just gonna feel like a lot more secure. And you don't have to worry about it kind of like creeping up. Okay. And again, sometimes you can struggle when you drop your pins. If you do drop pins on the floor, spray them with alcohol before you put them back on your head. And two, if everybody has to like share hairpins or something like that, which hopefully you always have like your own pile of them for shows or something. If not, I would always just like take every pin that I knew I took out of somebody's like wig or hair or whatever, and I just alcohol them all at the end of the night, just so that way like I know that they're clean, and I don't have to worry about anybody's like germs or sweat or anything kind of like getting onto somebody else's. Okay. So I have at least like I have one pin here and here in my nape, and I just like popped one right through the front. So depending, once I get the wig on, I might have to slide this back a little bit more, but we have to see kind of how the wig is going to fit. But at this point it feels pretty tight, so that means that it is pretty secure. If people want more pins, I would give them more, and like if you have like these little side bits like I do, that might be something you have to go in and like gel back for somebody depending on how their wig fits, because sometimes you can't catch enough of it with a pin. But at this point you would be ready to throw your wig on. So we are gonna take a quick break and then do that next.